think about this. How many major drum brands are there out there? I don't know, 20, 50? So when you think about that, all right, so how many product development engineer jobs are there in the world for a drum company? Wait, how about this? How many product development engineer jobs are there for a drum company that has full benefits and a cafeteria? Right? Not many. I wanted a job when I was in college. I wanted a job as a product development engineer for a drum company. I was down messing with one of my pedals one day because I was on a track to get into the automotive engineering thing. And I go, damn, somebody's got to design this stuff. Why wouldn't it be me? And so, you know, I designed my curriculum around that, and my resume landed here at Rogers at a point in time when there was a vacuum, right? Jim was working it, Dave had left, and actually I got to rewind because there's another funny component to this personal story. So I'm an engineering student about to be graduate at Worcester Polytech in Massachusetts, and as all colleges do, they invite companies in to, so that the students can interview. And one of the companies was the CBS Technology Center in Connecticut. What do they do? Right? I don't even know what they do. There's some research thing. Right? So I sit there and I'm being interviewed by this guy, and I said, whoa, look, he said, I don't want to work for you. I said, your company, CBS, owns a drum company in California called Rogers. He said, you do? Yes. And you know what? That's where I want to work, right? See my resume. This is where I want to go. You give me that connection. And he did. And I sent the resume in, and that's where it landed on Mike Fleming's desk. And, you know, they had me out. We had a nice chat. And, you know, wow, I got the gig. I got the job. I went to work for research and development, right? So this is CBS Musical Instruments, and it's Fender, Rogers, Rhodes. They're on Valencia Drive in Fullerton. And so we were in Leo Fender's original buildings, and it was R&D for Fender, for Rogers, and for Rhodes. Now, towards the end there, one of the guys had these nice jackets made up. I got one. And you see the back here? Fender's making tomorrow's legends or something like that. And everybody in R&D got their name embroidered on their jacket. I did not. I said, you know what? I want to represent what I stand for. So that's right.
Nice. Right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
Still fits.
Yeah, still fits. Thank God for that. God bless him, right? And R&D was a magical place. When I would sit in my office, across the hall was Rhodes piano R&D. And Harold Rhodes would come in, and the two engineers there, Jim Murphy and a guy whose nickname was Lucky. Now these guys were freaking geniuses, right? They were developing digital sounds before it was a thing, right? This was all theoretical. They were doing the math to figure this stuff out. And of course Harold would have no part of it, right? So they'd be in there yelling and screaming at each other. And then once in a while, Herbie would come by, or Chick would come by, and I'd turn my radio down. Here's Herbie Hancock across the hall from me, testing out Rhodes pianos. You know, guitars were in the building right next to us. Fender amps was a couple doors down from us. It was just a magical place. And the relationships that I made in that time, I'm still in touch with these guys. You know, still hanging out with John Page, still talking with Bill Gilo, who actually won an Academy Award for his work at JBL for speaker design. Interesting place. Now, we all love to hate CBS, of course, right? They were the last, ones of the old Roger, last holder of that name. So now, imagine what CBS is. Let's talk about this for a minute. Now, in today's parlance, Wall Street, what CBS did was when they created their musical instruments division, the Wall Streeters would say, we're going to do a roll-up. And so CBS went out and they bought Fender guitars, they bought Rhodes pianos, they bought Rogers drums, of course. Gemeinhardt flutes, Leiden Healy harps, Leslie speakers, Steinway pianos. Am I missing anybody?
I don't think so.
Right? So the CBS television company decided they were going to get in the musical instrument business, and they bought all these companies and put it under this CBS Musical Instruments banner. And so it's a big company, right? BlackRock in New York is already big. Now you got this giant musical instrument company underneath that. So big company, a lot of spreadsheets, right? A lot of managers looking at numbers, right? A lot of bureaucracy. Now, in our piece of property in Fullerton, you had these outbuildings where you had R&D, you had the metal shop, you had the drum line, and then you get to the really big building that had the mahogany offices up front, and then in the back, you've got all of Fender manufacturing, all of Fender amp manufacturing, all of Rhodes piano manufacturing. Think about how many parts are in a Rhodes piano. Crazy, right? So they had full up everything. They could have been building cars there. They had the staff for that. They had a manufacturing engineering department. They had a purchasing department. They had all the infrastructure that goes with being a major manufacturer. So that was the world that Rogers was pulled into. So now imagine that we want to be competitive, and as Jim talked about, the Series 2 concept came out, right? And this was an effort to have a low-cost introductory drum kit. The pressed paper shells, the plastic, blah, 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 right? So when I arrived on the scene, it had just shipped, right? The first Series 2 kits had shipped. And what I learned was happening was dealers would receive this box about the size of a washing machine. They would open the top, and they would look in and go, oh no. They would close it back up and ship it back to Valencia Drive. Right? Now, all these parts were nest packed in there, and I don't know if it got jumbled, some of them, maybe there were some quality issues or whatever, but they looked at this and just, at first sight, some of them just wouldn't accept it. Now, imagine when they decided to do this, all the different people that touched this project, it went from, oh, we're going to, use this really good quality plastic, and we've got, Jim said he played the drums for hours and hours, and they were great drums, but now you've got, okay, well, here's the materials guy. If we just switch to ABS plastic would be a lot cheaper. Oh, cheaper is good. ABS plastic is like the cheapest, junkiest plastic that there is, right? So we switched for materials. And it's like, oh, you know what, if we pay for the expensive molds, it'll be a lot cheaper per piece. So like, okay, let's do that. And let's make tens of thousands of parts for this thing, right? And then, let's assemble this in Monrovia at the Leslie speaker. So, holy cow. I get there, I remember sitting in a room, and I'm in one of my first meetings, and this guy, Ed Llewellyn, who's like operations manager or something, VP guy, walks in the room. He's got a yellow Post-it note stuck to his forehead that says $1 million. Oh. He said, gentlemen, we have a problem. You have to help me solve this problem. We have now lost $1 million. Now, how many of these do you have to sell at dealer cost to come up with $1 million in revenue? And that's, by the way, profit is only a little piece of that, right? So this is a concern. So when we talk about the transformation of Rogers as a brand at that time in the early 80s, the backdrop is, I walked into a company that was, whoa, the spreadsheet guys are looking at this and we're already $1 million down. So, as Dave alluded to, what could we do in R&D? Well, we sure weren't going to get any more budget. That ship had sailed, right? So what we could do is take what we had and re-swizzle it. So you see the multi-stack, hardware that Dave was talking about. We make a deeper shell. We released what Dave called the square drums at the time. We did the wood snare drums. We released these. Now these are all things that we could do and we could bootstrap it, right? So in essence, all we're really doing in terms of overhead to the company was just adding part numbers, right? So we had all the parts, not a problem. So let's see, hold on. Don't let me get too far off track here. Oh, I got to share this. So again, CBS is the entity we love to hate. Greg Perry made a comment on Jeff's Jeff's Facebook group, and I want to read it because he really caught it. There's Jeff. Really caught the essence of this really well. So this is Greg Perry, who is product manager. We work together. Greg, I'm not sure when he left in relation to Dave and to Jim, but Greg took the photographs at my wedding. So I mean, we were tight. So this is what Greg said about CBS. He said, I think there's always positives and negatives about corporate umbrellas. For Rogers, it was a giant benefit to move to a great Southern California location and update all the manufacturing equipment. Additionally, being associated with Fender, it opened the sales and distribution to a much larger dealer network, both nationally and internationally. The downside is that since other product lines were much bigger and added much more to the bottom line, Rogers did not get the marketing, sales, and R&D support that it would have greatly benefited from. As far as product quality, I would say that it became much better because the umbrella company had already put extreme quality assurance systems into place. They definitely did. And there were still some great developments while under the CBS until the hostile takeover of Fender, which was Bill Schultz buying it away from CBS. So I just thought that was a really great perspective and comment from Greg. So in any case, you got the CBS guys that are running a business. And since I've grown up, I've had to run a couple of businesses, and I get it, right? There's income, there's expenses, and that was their deal. But for people like Jim and Dave and Greg and myself, we were emotionally involved in this brand. So it was a struggle to see this going on. And if you'll indulge me, I'll read an internal memo to you that really brings that out. Remember, again, you're a big company, you're in charge of all this manufacturing. What's the single most expensive thing when you run a manufacturing company? Labor. Labor. All right, so back around 1980-ish, 81, CBS Manufacturing, somebody said, oh, there's a guy in Mexico who's got a plant. And they could build some of our sub-assemblies for us. Right? It's not just Rogers, but they built sub-assemblies for the guitar amps and for Rhodes. And it's just sort of labor stuff, right? It's just sort of repetitive. It's not craftsmanship. It's just get these parts together, and then they would ship to Fullerton, where they would be turned into musical instruments. And I have to say that Dave Gordon taught me something. He taught me a lot of things, but one of the things that stuck with me was, I don't really call it a drum. It's not just a drum, it's an instrument. Yes. These are instruments, and very, very, very sensitive to that. So they didn't become instruments until they were assembled in Fullerton, and we're able to get them out from there. So, holy cow! So we have this plant in Mexico, and we got a few minutes, right? Do you want to hear this memo?
Yes.
Right. So if you're a Rogers history buff, this will really really shed some light on what I walked into. All right, so Dave,
yes.
This is a memo to you, actually, oddly enough.
Okay.
August 21st, 1981. Now, remember, I'm fresh out of college. I'm in my 20s, so I'm a little brash, right? I'm a little opinionated. Who knew, you know? So anyway, the subject of the memo is Rogers Drum Plant in San Luis, Mexico, observations, problems, and solutions. My stay in San Luis from August 18th to August 20th was primarily to set up tooling for the new deep drums and wood snare drums. I also intended to study some of their procedures to hopefully eliminate problems that have found their way up to the Fullerton drum line, as in crooked lugs, poor bearing edges, etc. When I was in San Luis last April, the facility seemed a little small, but with the changes planned and some reorganization, the future looked hopeful. When I walked into the plant on August 18th, I was aghast. Most of one room, the factory is basically divided into 2 rooms, was devoted mostly to bagging Squire strings and assembly of Rhodes piano parts. Boxes both full and empty were scattered, parts awaiting assembly were piled haphazardly on top of each other, rejects and scrap littered several areas. The place was basically a disorganized mess. Granted, I'm a product development and design engineer for a research and development department. I'm not a manufacturing engineer, and how the plant's operated is not up to me, nor do I want that responsibility, which by the way I ended up with later on. The reason I'm showing concern is because as the product designer, I love the product. I'm extremely dedicated to it and proud of it. When I see what is happening, I'm personally hurt. This is a company memo. You're gonna love this. When I walk through the drum lines in San Luis and Fullerton, I'm literally sick. Now that I have expressed how I feel, I will offer some suggestions for improvement. Smart for a young guy. With the Menexa, as the name of the company down there, with the Menexa operation, we need to be either in or out. I'm told Menexa is losing money due to massive rejects. People in the plant do not know how to handle problems with the product, machinery, or material movement. Just as a side note, folks, the people working in the plant down there were good people. They were doing the right things. Management comes down to management, right? Which I'll get into. So, number one, we need to either, number one, provide to them a full-time Spanish-speaking engineer with a knowledge of the product. Duh, they didn't have that. Or number two, remove from Menexa the operation that requires advanced machinery and supervised craftsmanship. Option 2 involves relocating to Fullerton all operations involved with building the drum shell assemblies. It seems that we have much fewer problems with hardware assembly in Menexa than drum shells. And when I say assembly, you know, right, so we had robots that would drill the holes, right? So, although I would prefer to have all Rogers assembly under one roof, I feel one compromise would be to bring back the drum shell assembly, but leave Menexa with the hardware assembly and a full-time Spanish-speaking engineer. The basis for proposing the return of the drum shell assembly involves the following factors. Lack of any machine or tooling support facilities in case of a breakdown. Lack of sufficient paint facilities and skilled personnel. Lack of knowledgeable and skilled supervision. Consider factor 3. At this point in time, we seem to be having trouble getting enough quality products from Menexa to fill open orders. These are the same products they were trained to build 8 months ago. CBS has recently made possible a huge boom in business for the Rogers division by introducing many new products. From a manufacturing standpoint, the new drums are very different from the old ones because new procedures and some new tools are required. Based on past experience, it's obvious the people in Menexa plant will not be able to figure out how to build new products even after they've been trained without a full-time supervision from a Spanish-speaking manufacturing engineer. In other words, new products do not look possible at this time. Whoa. Now consider factor number 1. This is the bottom line. Many of the tools and machines to build drums are one-of-a-kind items, and most of them are very old, temperamental, and in need of rebuilding. There is one pneumatically controlled robot to drill the lug holes on all the drum shells. This machine broke while I was there. The very thought that if we could not get the machine functioning again, the Rogers Drum Company could build no drums was the most frightening ordeal I've ever been through here at CBS. Fortunately, we were able to get it working again by holding one of the air hoses on with rope and a vice grip pliers until the proper part could be located and shipped to Menexa. I guarantee if this occurred at Fullerton, the solution to the problem would have been routine. It was a sign. Let us read the signs before CBS is face to face with disaster.
fired after that?
Let's give him a raise. Yeah.
This was a very timely move in that I had just spent my entire year's advertising budget on a new advertising campaign based on Made in America to go up against our friends in the Orient who were commanding a large amount of the market. At that time, I had the little Made in America and the American flag on each magazine ad, and I don't recall anybody else at that time had started doing that quite yet. So we had an incentive on many fronts to get this manufacturing done properly. So we were very attentive. I told them when they started bringing up truckloads of drums that none of those were going to go into stock until they were inspected, and I would personally go out with the manifest and reject most of what they were bringing up. John, I don't think we sold a whole lot of those drums that came out of that facility.
Yeah.
So we eventually got it moved back up and put things back to normal. But that was certainly an experience in management. And of course, like in many companies, manufacturing sort of marches to the beat of their own drum, pun intended. And I was not even consulted before they made the decision to move the manufacturing down there. Now, obviously, I would have rejected that, but eventually we got it moved back up and put straight again.
Yep, yep. Dave, I'm going to switch you off the screen for a second and switch over to Jim's computer, and we'll look at some pictures of the drum line.
Okay.
All right, so hang there. You're still connected to us, and your voice will still come through, but we just won't see your picture. All right, so this will. Oh, I guess I can use this thing, right? Okay. Oh, there's me again.
Yeah. The wall.
Right. So on the other side of this wall is the drum line. So the way this worked was, right, I'm working at R&D, and slowly what I was seeing happening was all the full-time employees, I say full-time Rogers employees, were disappearing. Right? So there was a manufacturing supervisor, all of a sudden he's gone. There's a manufacturing foreman, he's gone. And different people, I forget who else, just like disappeared, right? So one day I come to work and it's, oh, John, you know what? We don't have a foreman for the production line, and you're going to be that guy. What are you talking about? I don't want to work in manufacturing. I'm like an R&D guy. Well, you can do that if you want in your spare time. But what you need to do is get here at 5:30 in the morning each day, and you have a team, maybe it was 8 or 10 of these folks that worked on the production line, maybe less. And they would work until 2:30 or so, typical factory hours. And then at 2:30 or 3, I'd go back to my R&D office and I'd do the R&D gig because I was not going to let that go. And so anyway, what you'll see here is this is Victor, and Victor's cutting the pearl on this slicer here. You see the Keller shells stacked up in the back here. This is classic. All right, so these are shells from Mexico that need to have the pearl stripped off, and the drum sanded and start fresh. All right, here's where after, so when we chose the pearl to go on a shell, we'd spray it with glue and hang it here to let the glue set. Oops, back up. And then here's Victor again with this machine, sort of like an old-fashioned washing machine or old-fashioned dryer. These two rollers would come together, and he'd carefully guide that on there. Of course, he had to start the pearl at the right spot on the shell to get the seam in the right place, and then hopefully when the pearl overlapped, it didn't crack along it. We've all seen this, right? The pearl gets cracked along the seam. You see they're stacked up behind there. This is that robot that I was talking about, pneumatically controlled. This is obviously a custom-built piece of equipment. And there's different platters. Right? So depending on the size of the shell, you change the platters out. And this would come down like this, and then the 4 drills come like this, and the little cam unit there, you tell what size shell it was, and it would rotate like this until it was done. Very cool. And I think Don Lombardi ended up with this at one point after Rogers shut down. All right, this fellow's name is Adon, A-D-O-N, and you can see he's working the drilling unit there. And this is great. Remember when we had film? It was possible to screw up the film advance in your camera and you get a double exposure. And that's what this is. I'm sorry. This is the only picture I ever took of this. This is the piece of tooling that we had made to drill the wood snare drums. Right? So this one piece of tooling, it's a Lazy Susan. It's on bearings, and you put the shell in there, and you drill and you spin it, and drill again. And it's a jig. Yeah. So this little plate inside there would help you know if you're going to drill a 5-inch or a 6.5. Right? It made the spacer. Here's Adon cutting the bearing edges on the router, and very noisy job. Yeah. And he was very, very good at it. And and this was a process that Dave Gordon was very instrumental in. Was after it was cut on the router, and there was a rough cut shape on the bearing edge, what we did was we made a flat table with sandpaper on it, and he would take it and he would twist it like this to break the sharp tip on the bearing edge, and then he'd hand sand the sort of the sharp edges that were on that flat that he'd then created, and then it would go on a granite flat table that machinists use. This is big stuff, right? This is a wood drum that we are checking with a light on a machinist granite table to make sure those bearing edges were perfectly flat. Now, here's why we did this. Dave will remember this. In R&D, we used to look at competitor stuff. So we bought everybody's 9x13 drum. One of every brand that we could get a hold of. Pull it out of the box, take the heads off, put it on the granite table. And the bearing edges back then were like this. They were horrible. I mean, that level of quality was not common. And so we said, oh, then we're going to build a premium instrument, and this is how we're going to do it. I forgot this fellow's name, but you see he's buff sanding the inside of the shell. There's the pearl being buffed on the same buffers that the guitar line used. This is Rene. Rene painted all the drums in that era, and Rene was fabulous, just a great guy and really talented. And the paint that we used, I thought it was lacquer, because we always called it lacquer. And I talked to Steve Grom, who was the quality assurance guy back then, and I said, Steve, somebody's challenged me on this finish, on one of the forums. I say it's lacquer, and the guy says, well, it can't be lacquer because I'm using a paint remover that's supposed to take lacquer off and won't touch it. So what is it? And so I asked Steve, and he goes, well, he said, realize the Fender guitar line next door, painting is their deal, right? Guitar finishes are, that's gold standard. So their paint shop, these guys are geniuses. And what they would do is they'd mix up a special blend of this polyester material. That's what this finish is. It's hard like that. So that's where the finish is. And here's somebody assembling the lugs. The tables were all, workbenches were all soft cloth. You can get scratched. There she is, doing some more assembly.
Black and white day.
Yeah, black and white day. Yeah, there she's putting the hoops on. And then when it finally got to the end of the line, this woman's responsibility was to basically do a rough tuning on the drums. Because Dave Gordon said, when somebody pulls a brand new drum out of the box and they hit it, they ought to go, yeah, all right. And so that was a new thing that we introduced to production. And then it goes in the box. This is Lance. He was always in trouble for something. He was a troublesome employee. Fortunately, I don't remember his last name. Oh, and so remember I said we got all those shells back from Mexico. Well, here's one of the guys. I don't even know if you could do this today, but he would take this squirt bottle of acetone. Yeah, and then he'd peel that shell off with that knife. So he's basically swimming in acetone. Those are the days, man. You know, you just can't do this stuff anymore, right?
Respirators on his forehead.
Yes, respirators on his forehead. You know, they just don't let you live like this.
Going home later.
Yeah? I don't know if you have kids after that or something.
2.5.
Good high
I'm going to roll this. So these are NAMM shows and Percussive Art Society shows. There's Craig Cramp at a NAMM show releasing the new beat drums. Ron Tutt, who played with Elvis, played with Neil Diamond. Yeah, there's a little story about him. But anyway, another show display sometime. There's Greg Perry, and that was at the Percussive Art Society show. I think it was Nashville or Knoxville or something like that. This thing. So you see this in all the posters, right? Right. Dave's got it behind his desk, right? This is that big monster drum kit. So on this particular day, April 17th, photographer was coming in, and we had a big sound room where we got to set up all our stuff and test it out. And it was a big enough room that I could set this drum kit up. So, you know, we set the thing all up, you know, like this, and photographers, you know, snapping away. He's had it all morning, you know. This was a big project, obviously, to get it all queued up and nice, you know, set up like this. And then it gets to be, he goes, hey, you know, it's lunchtime. We're gonna go out and grab a bite. Can you just turn it around? So I took it all apart, turned it around, set it back up, and that's the picture that's on the poster. So I was lucky enough to get a couple of the proofs that he took of this picture, which was never used. It was never in any so funny experience. And by the way, if you can kind of tell that a drummer set this up because you actually could sit there and reach on it and play it. When it was turned around, not so much. But we got a chance. This is again at the PBS show. We decided to do the maple hoops like Jim's got on his. So that was kind of a neat thing. And that's that. So now let me bring Dave back into the picture.
He's asleep.
Let's see.
When we first got the 8-ply shells, these 4 drums are the first shipment of the 8-ply shells, and the reason we went to a straight 8-ply shells is because Keller Shells, who made the shells, were having trouble with the reinforcing rings, making sure the reinforcing rings were staying in there. And so they went to a straight 8-ply shell and with no reinforcing rings. And you talk to people about reinforcing rings or no reinforcing rings, and this thing will go on, that discussion will go on for 3,000 years. I don't know whether they're good, bad. All these drums have reinforcing rings. These drums don't. They all sound good. We used to take a lot of flack for the tubes being inside the drums because it kills the resonance of the drums, you know? And so I said, that resonance dead?
Hell no.
I said, how are you tuning them? I don't know. Well, that's probably the problem, you know? Anyway, yeah, we took a lot of flack over that. I converted these all over to rims, and they all sound good. They sounded good before too. When you had concert toms, it didn't really mean a whole lot because it sounded like you were playing on the carpet anyway. So, you know, concert toms were a thunk.
So Jim, you mentioned those are the first 8-ply, and those, in fact, if I recall, are the first lacquer drums ever done, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, and they put the guitar finish on these, and when they put the lugs on them, you'll notice right here it started cracking the finish, because that finish is really thick. If you rub your fingers on there, that finish is really thick. And this is the only drum for some reason that had cracking problems. None of the other ones do. But if there was a sharp spot on the lug, when you screwed it on there, it would cut the finish. So they went to a thinner lacquer finish, or not lacquer, polyester finish. These are gorgeous. These were slick, but they were a real problem when it came to putting the lugs on them, and that's when they also started using putting this was Dave's idea, putting this is a felt backing here. The new Roger stuff is coming out with a rubber. It's a rubber thing. This drum, I'm not sure what my thought process was at the time, but this drum has cable snares on it, okay? This drum is drier than snot. Now, I'll tell you, man, I don't remember whether this is a Tama or a Pearl setup here, but the snares just barely go past the bearing edge, okay? And then, so this gadget, instead of having a snare frame like the Rogers does, this thing pulls it out and then down. And you see I put spacers in here to get this thing out far enough so it was pulling at a 90-degree angle. These were the only cable snares I had access to. That's why I put this thing together, to hear what this thing sounded like. And I mean, the baby's dry, man. And we never took the cable thing any farther than that. But there were a number of things that that never got off the ground. And one of the biggest problems that we faced, and the marching community still faces the same problem, they don't know. They were trying to emulate this drum. This is a premier marching drum, okay? You see that thing under the top head? Mm-hmm. That's what made this drum sound like it sounded, okay? There's no way on this planet that you can make a drum sound like this drum with only snares on the bottom. See, there's nothing on the bottom. I took it apart and broke a couple of the screws, and I've got to get them remade. Now, listen, the drum head doesn't sound the greatest, but listen to what happens when you tap this head with the wires right under the head. You hear the wires? Instant, bang. There's no air column moving to have to do anything. That's the sound, and I had no clue when we dealt with that. Didn't even realize that this drum, nor did anybody else, Ludwig, Slingerland, nobody. Okay? So we're busting our butts, tightening the living snot out of those things, trying to get this sound. Never happened. Impossible. You hear that snare? Instant, man. I mean, you could take, don't you have, you've got some little snare wire, little thing like that? Yeah, yeah, and bring it just a head.
Yeah, you got it.
And without it even being mounted to anything, you put the snares under there and you tap it, and you hear that instant snare sound. That's there's a Mapex snare here that they're using Kevlar heads. My God, that's bulletproof. You know, I mean, it's insane.
Here's a bucket. Go ahead and hit it.
That's great.
So all we have is a set of wires that actually are up against the top
That's
end, like
great.
a cocktail drum from the 50s.
Yeah.
We have pretty good surface adhesion, and then we have, I have this pre-tuned.
You can hear that, the snare, instant, man, instant, okay? And so we were trying to recreate this, and there's no way on this planet that it would ever happen. Now, this has another set of snares on the bottom. Like I said, I've destroyed some of the screws, so I've got to get them remachined because Premier is no longer. At least at this point it is.
Yeah.
So anyway, and this whole animal, this bottom snare animal is bizarre. I mean, really bizarre.
Jim, what year did you got the 8 plies, and then you're going into the 10 plies? Is there a specific date that they went from the 8
10 ply.
Oh, that was only on the snare drums, Jeff.
The 10 ply was only on the marching drum.
Okay, all right, no, I was talking about the toms.
Toms
I
were
think,
always 8. We never did 10 on toms.
what?
Never did 10 ply on toms.
No, it was never 10 ply. It was only on that drum to keep the screws from pulling through the shells when you put like 3,000 pounds per square inch on a load.
We did 10 ply on the
On the XPs.
wood snares as well, right? Those are it.
On those snares?
Yeah, on the 5-inch and the 6.5.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
My Rogers kit that I had in the 70s had a gray spackle primer on the inside shell. How many years did they spray the inside shell with
1,000.
it?
You know, what I was told back in the day, you know, why did they paint the inside of the shells gray, was when they glued those reinforcing hoops on there, it was just a sloppy job. It was just a messy job, and they could never get the inside to look good because of the glue splatter from attaching the reinforcing things. So, hey, easy solution back in the day.
Yeah, it was to cover up clams.
There you go.
They've got, they sprayed them all. They were all sprayed inside. And to make, then they had to make sure that the wood on the inside looked good. It couldn't have weirdnesses on it. And you'll notice the color. For some reason, this drum changed colors. I'm not quite sure why. And this is the drum that's out around. Sounds okay to me. You know, so within reason, you can deal with an out-around drum. I mean, if it was oblong, I mean, you know.
Hey, do you guys trust Jim to know sound, know drum sound?
Yes.
And right? Well, there's a part of this that he doesn't really care about.
Hey! Hey! We need a picture of that.
You're getting it, Jeff.
It still works.
Oh, yeah, works fine. I don't like tom cases, okay? So I stack the bass drum on my trap case and then put the tom, so I've got a stack. And that's why I hate tile floors, because you'll hit a rut, and more than once, you know, the things go rolling. And I think that's what caused that. It hit the floor one time too many. And
Jim.
Yeah, I'm lazy. If I can't move in one fell swoop, man, we don't play the gig, you know. To bring this set here, it took all this stuff. It took 5 trips, you know, and 6. Okay.
So there's one more historical fact we should know about these. So we know they're the first 8-ply shells, SPUs. We know they're the first lacquer drums. So Jim loved them so much, he sent them to a friend of his in the Bay to check them out. And he loved them so much that he ordered a set. His name is David Garibaldi.
Oh yeah, Dave played this.
David's outfit was based off this original set of these drums right here.
Yeah, and after a while he decided that he didn't want to play these anymore because you couldn't see him because this stuff was up too high. And like I said, if you Google that Mathis Germany thing, Brazil medley, you can see about this much of the top of my head. You know, you can see my eyes and about this much. And you can see my head moving back and forth, but that's about all.
John, you mentioned sound, that's super important, but this is also functionality. So this is not just stacking some drums, it's how you play these drums with a movement like this. You might give a quick example, so it's just not 4 drums on one stand. That's not the purpose of it.
Now this is me, okay? There may be 10,000 different ideas in here, but let me put this back together. Where's the snare drum?
We're getting a lot of, Jeff, we're getting a lot of stuff, man.
Thank you. I'm gonna take a look. I don't know how we're gonna post it on the site. This is deep speed. We'll have to YouTube it.
Let me put this pedal back on here where it belongs.
I know.
Okay, the sticks. When I'm playing, the cymbals are the most important thing on the drum set to me, especially in this situation. The cymbals, where they are to me, is the most important thing. The drums I don't much care about. But when you play, when I play, this position, so this thing just does this. I don't have to do any kind of weird change of grip or any of that kind of thing. And when I'm playing the cymbals, these cymbals drive me nuts because they're way too far away, but I don't have any choice. And all of my cymbals you can ride on. Okay? That's my thought process. This Sabian is a nice crash cymbal. The crash cymbal I had, every time we used to go to Boston, I would get an appointment at Zildjian, and I would go in. Some of you guys that were here yesterday have heard this story. Pardon me, but I would go in, I would make an appointment and go in, and they would give me like 2 or 3 guys, and we would go in, I'd say, I want an 18-inch blah, 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 and so all 3 of us are smashing 18-inch blah, blah, blahs until we could find one that I like. Well, after about 2 hours of crashing on 18-inch blah, blah, blahs, you come out of there, man, you're like nuts. And this is one of them that I got that way. This is a Paisky, and this is a Sabian that I just got because the 16 or 17 crash cymbal that I used to use here, when I got this, is shot, it's dead, okay? But this is a real nice, and it's gone. And that's what I like, man. Crash and get out of the way, all right? Some of these have a lower harmonic to them, and I hate cymbals. When you crash them, they go, you know, I want it. Joe's got a real cool one. That little crash cymbal that you use on the right side, that's a real neat little cymbal, too. First time I hit it at Brian's thing, man, I went, well, I got to hit that some more, you know? It's really slick. And this cymbal I'm trying to replace. I don't know why. It sounds weird when it's hooked onto this. When it's on a cymbal stand by itself, it sounds better. And this cowbell, when you're playing sing, 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 every time Gene Krupa would come out of a solo, he'd come out one. Then the band would come in. So you're playing along with no bass drum pedals. Play that. That's why this goofy cowbell is up here. Because every now and then we have to play sing, sing, sing. And the cowbell, this isn't the ugliest sounding small cowbell I have, but it's round, so it's easier to hit it. The other one I've got that's really a better sound for this is flat, and if you hit it on the edge, it doesn't sound really good. So, But anyway, that's my concept of the way my hands move, and you can see it's all a pretty even up and down motion like that. I sit in on guys' sets, and the cymbals are flat, and I hate that because when you've got, and I use a small bead, okay, on the sticks, because if you want a little bigger sound, you play on the middle of the bead. If you want a lighter sound, get up on the tip. You can hear the difference. And I like to play really soft.
Hey, Jim.
Yeah.
What you just displayed, is that something that you picked up from Freddie Gruber, or?
The what?
What you just showed us as far as your positioning the toms and the way that you play them. Is that something you picked up from Freddie Gruber?
No.
Or no? Okay.
No. I was going someplace and I lost my train of thought here. Oh, I know what. I play sticks until they disintegrate. I did a clinic up in Oregon 3,000 years ago, and where's Dana? Dana,
Yeah.
what were those sticks called that they had a little notch for your thumb? Do you remember those?
True lines.
What?
True line?
I don't remember, but they had a little notch in there. You could put your thumb in there. My left stick likes to wander around in my hand for some stupid reason. I don't know. And so I was doing this clinic, and I said, "Does anybody?" I may have had a Studio 10 set there. I'm not sure, but I said, "Does anybody want to play? You know, come up and play this." And this little kid, he's about this big, came up, and I had this there's a brand new pair of sticks. So he comes up, he picks up the stick, he hits a cymbal one time, and the tip of the stick goes flying off, and I'm going, "That's my brand new pair of sticks, man. What are you doing?" Anyway, this is one of my favorite sticks. And the grain in this stick is like this. And I managed to hit it, and it broke off, so you'll see there's just a little bit of the tip left. And this is the pair of sticks that I play with. I've worn the bead completely off of them. Okay, it's just a point. And I never play with, I do cross stick stuff on the tom-toms because I harpoon myself. Okay? But the key issue is this: you can't play loud with these sticks because you've got no bead left on them, you know. And this one you can slam the cymbal as hard as you want. It's never going to make more of a sound than about boop, you know. So these things all have a place. When I'm playing at a club and somebody's going to sit in, I'm playing with these. I put a new pair of sticks on the thing for the guy, because I say, if he sees that I'm playing with a stick like this, he'd go, "Man, this guy's poor. This guy needs some food." You know?
Hey, Jim?
Yeah.
Just consulting with Dana. I've got one more thing to talk about, then we'll do a Q&A with Dave
Okay, cool.
and myself.
Go.
All right, I'll go. All right, so I found another company memo again. You'll indulge me here.
Hatred.
All right, so this was written by a young fella, mid-20s. It's now 1983. Now, I will be leaving Rogers in 1984, so for me, this is close to the end. And as I told you, I watched one by one all the Rogers employees being let go. And so I was the last full-time Rogers employee. There were other Rogers employees, but they were part-time. They would work, you know, somebody would be shared with Squire Strings, somebody would be shared with, you know, the metal shop or whatever. But, you know, I'm the last, you know, full-time guy. So, in marketing, after Dave left, Bill Schultz put Ed Rizzuto in charge of Rogers marketing. Ed Rizzuto was the marketing guy for acoustic guitars, and he was a trumpet player. So, you know, poor Ed. He didn't know one end of this thing from the other. And so I would spend a lot of time in Ed's office coaching him on, you know, Rogers marketing. To the point where, you know what? I went through engineering school and all that, but I really dig this marketing stuff. And later in life went on to be a brand manager and a marketing guy, because that's my passion. So I wrote this memo to Ed. Again, whether it was a good idea to put this in writing or not, I don't know, but I said, April 25th, 1983. This memo is to commit to writing what we have already discussed regarding my future contributions to CBS. As I have mentioned before, I would like to begin training a new line foreman for the drum line immediately. I will then be free to pursue with immense energy a marketing-oriented position in which I can use my experience and expertise in engineering, research and development, manufacturing, and marketing. Because I've been developing my knowledge of percussion instruments and the percussion industry over a number of years, I feel I could single-handedly improve the profit picture for Rogers Drums this year and next. It is my opinion that if we stimulate the marketplace with the Rogers name, we can increase the demand for Rogers and see an actual increase in sales. We all want Rogers to at least break even for 1983 and beyond. Under the current situation, we can predict what level of sales to expect for XB8 products. When the drumline was working to open order a few months ago, we employed 4 or 5 people to build 100 drums per week inefficiently. That appears to be as good as it will get. For this reason, I do not see a need to invest any resources in the physical production of the instruments at this time. It'd be most wise to start from scratch on all the time studies and routings to at least determine how much it actually costs to build drums. Once we have a firm handle on our paperwork, we can begin to intelligently shape a new product line that can be built efficiently and meet the desires of the consumer at a profit we can afford. This project can be done at the same time we're feeding the public with news that we're an active American drum company. All of this will require a young, enthusiastic, knowledgeable, career and growth-oriented individual. Listen to me. I would get a tremendous amount of satisfaction out of turning this company around in a hurry, and I know I could do it. Brash. Even with little or no resources, Rogers XB8 drums should not continue to ignore the market. I want to do something. Outlined below are a few of the strategies that I would carry out. There was a guy on the inside struggling for this, right? This was it. So, A, make the Rogers name active in the marketplace, like Jeff does, like the new Rogers guys do, right? Issue several releases to various new product news columns in many different magazines. Create a functional artist endorsement program. Get artists involved more. Get more mileage out of their support for our products. Sign new and beneficial artists. Organize clinics and appearances. Produce artist profiles and fact sheets. Number 3, feel the pulse of the market by spending one day a month at a different dealer or drum shop. This would provide an opportunity to greatly improve dealer relations while at the same time analyze competitive products and programs. By witnessing current trends, we'll be better equipped to develop a new product line. Number 4, give clinics or organize contests to demonstrate our product line capabilities. Number 5, write detailed descriptions of the existing product line and distribute them to district sales managers and customers. Number 6, recommendations to our ad agency to make the best use of our advertising budget. B, manufacturing support. Assist in determining the actual cost of manufacture for the existing product line. Number 2, keep in close contact with manufacturing to ensure quality and the processing of special orders in a timely manner. Finally, C, new products. Maintain close contact with Reliance International. Reliance International, we know these guys, right? Yes. They're making the new Rogers stuff, right? That's who is, so back in the day, remember, we introduced Rogers 360, Rogers 380 as our entry-level lines. Do you know where those came from? Mm-hmm. Joe Chen at Reliance, right? Great guy. So, maintain a close contact with the Reliance International and help them develop for us a more proprietary product. Monitor inventory, demand, and delivery of import drums and hardware. Guide Reliance in the development of new professional series Rogers hardware. In conclusion, what I plan to do is reestablish the demand for Rogers XB8 products. At the same time, I want to create a balance between efficient production goals and the rising consumer demand. My objective will be to keep plant costs down while maintaining a cost-competitive product that will satisfy the customer. Yay. Didn't happen. But we had a plan. So now, you know, we got a shot now. We got a second chance with Bob.
I had a question for you.
Go ahead. It's Q&A time, by the way. Question.
The tobacco sunburst.
Yeah.
Give us a little insight on tobacco sunbursts and how and where you took them to be painted and what were the different types of tobacco.
All right. So here was the theory. Now remember we talked about CBS Musical Instruments having a dealer network worldwide, right? And so you know, we could go into a dealer and say, we have guitars, we have amps, we have Rhodes pianos. They say, well, yeah, we need drums. Hence, Rogers Drums was purchased to have a full package to offer dealers around the world. So, Fender guitar. Iconic Fender guitar is the Sunburst, right? Tobacco Sunburst. So the drum, that paint job was designed so that the guitar player looks this way and the drummer looks just like. So that's where that came from. And Renee painted it.
Wow. And y'all did different tries, you know, at those. Didn't you? Maybe I've seen different colors, like more of a natural around the center, and
yeah.
So I guess it's just the way different levels of repaint.
Yeah, we screwed with it. We shouldn't have, frankly.
It's all right.
Because you know, you got some drums and finished goods that had more of a gold on the inside, and then towards the end it was more natural on the inside, and then it was a match. And what do we think?
So today, you know, we find a three-piece set. Yeah. We've got a three-piece set. You're never going to make it.
Yeah, right. Yes, sir.
I was fascinated by the premier snare right on the top of the head underneath there. Has anybody ever made a snare drum? The strands touching like that? Since it's so immediate, you're talking about the attack. It's like so instant as opposed to the air moving the snares underneath another head.
Ludwig Super Sensitive from the 20s. They had it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Ludwig way back. I think Dana has one.
Supersonic or something like that.
Yeah.
Sensitive.
Yeah.
And the one just on the bottom, the parallel action, that was the super.
Yeah.
Super sensitive with the snares underneath the top head too.
Yeah. I'd forgotten about that. And we had this bass for forever, but they never had a flat bass heavy duty cymbal stand. This is the only animal in existence. All of this stuff was this center rod and the legs off of the hi-hat, the big legs off of the hi-hat. Everything here was in-house. We didn't have to have anything machined, anything. It never saw the light of day.
Wow.
Wow.
And the neat thing about this stuff, as opposed to all of the other stands out there that have all the whoop-de-doos in them, you can take these stands and when you put them in a trap case, they nest. Okay?
Yes.
You know, you try to do that with those stands with all those other ugly, I think they're ugly to tell you the truth. It takes 3 trap cases to do this.
That's what it's like to have a working drummer on staff.
Yeah. Well, that's where Roy Burns really helped, man. He said, that's stupid. You know, and that's, you walk in and you show him something, you go, that's stupid. End of story, man. We were done, you know?
Question?
Yes, I have a question, but first there is another snare drum that had that too, which was the Ludwig New Era, and the snares on the bottom and the top were on the inside of the drum. And that was a very rare drum. There's not very many that exist. But I worked in a music store in the early 80s, and there was a Dynasonic frame that had white nylon strands. Was that an experiment? Or
No. No.
what was that about?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just nylon.
Oh,
They had these were there all the time. They had this nylon, or you could put wire on here or gut. I had one that had gut on it.
Was that close to a gut sound?
I'm sorry?
Was that close to a gut sound?
Yeah, pretty dry.
Yeah.
Pretty dry. And the key issue here is you see it's got these extensions here. because when you do this, you see this edge sticking up, you got to get this past the bearing edge. So these extensions were put on there to get the whether it's gut or wire or whatever it is, get it past the bearing edge so it could come up and hit the drum.
Dynasonic, the five, they have those in it.
Oh, yeah.
With the bottom rim that you can, you know, the hoop, and it all fits right underneath there.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been wondering that for 35 years. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, I mean,
That's amazing exact though.
and these, I bought this is 60 thousandths nylon, and because I didn't have, I didn't have the wire, the gut that was here, or the nylon, wasn't long enough to put these extensions on and get it out far enough. So I bought some more, some longer lanes to do that. But that's why I put cables on that other one, because I was trying to, okay, what's cable gonna sound like? That was my job. That was John's job. You know, fighting and doing all of this other stuff, that was Dave's job too, was trying to come up with something, you know, what's this sound like? Why, what, you know? That was our job. I mean,
Dave, you got any comments you want to add?
Well, I'm having difficulty following. The audio is bad, and I'm only picking up a few words out of every statement. It sounds like a great presentation from what I can understand, but what was the question?
Any question? There was no question, just asking if you had something you wanted to add.
Oh,
on any topic.
Just that, well, a while back when you were talking about the acoustical properties, I remember when we had put together the testing that we were doing, trying to figure out what each component on the instrument was contributing to the overall sound. Because if you recall, we did have an issue with recording studios having an overtone on that Dynasonic. And we discovered that it was the rail on the Dynasonic that was the culprit, and we were taking steps to isolate that. And we took it even farther by attempting to isolate every piece of hardware that actually touched the shell, so that we didn't, we were suspending, as you recall, with a spectrum analyzer and striking each piece of hardware individually, the lugs, everything that was attached to the drum, to figure out what frequency that they were vibrating at. Now, of course, a lot of that will be canceled out once everything is bolted together, but it's going to contribute to the overall sound of the instrument. So we got a little far under the hood on that one, as I recall. Yeah. But that's what really prompted us to start isolating with felt. As you recall, we were packing the springs inside the lugs, and just, you know, attempting to take every precaution to eliminate the overtones, any undesirable overtones. But that was quite an exercise, and I believe, John, I still have that rather large notebook that you kept with all of those notes in there.
Well, nice. Yeah, I know Jeff Burke's now interested.
I am. Anything that we can get our hands on with the history and information of Rogers to be able to share it with everybody around the world is icing on the cake to us. Because everybody wants to know, you know, as we go into a new generation of what's happening, we need to, it's great to be able to share this information and then to show it and to have it. Because the idea is, you know, that Jack and Vivian and I have discussed on things, and some other folks, about having a place that we could all put our things. And of course, we buy a lot of tickets for these reasons, but there's a lot involved to do that, like trust and everything. But then again, going back, being able to have history, like at the drum shows, be able to share it and have it out on the table for people to read, I think is really nice.